Hello class, welcome to my presentation on Iraqi cuisine, a bite-sized synopsis. The history of Iraq's cuisine dates back to the Mesopotamia era. This is around the time that they started cultivating and finding out which plants were useful and edible, and this actually allowed them to have a surplus of food. And keep in mind, as Salem Media notes, this is mankind's first venture into agriculture and village life. Below is a tablet thought to be dated back to the 2nd millennium BCE. It's the first documented recipe in the world, and it contains 25 different recipes from that time era. These include different kind of beef broths, stews, and various mixtures of meats and vegetables. Here are two examples of the foods or recipes thought to be contained on that tablet. And these are two foods that are still very popular today. And the first is dolma, generally as stuffed grape leaf. Other leaves can be used, but this is the preferred one in Iraq. And then you have the meat broth. And the meat broth is very simplistic in nature, as is a lot of the old recipes. They were very garlic heavy and light on the salt and pepper. For example, this meat broth, the rough translation or something close to what would be similar to theirs but adapted to a more Western palate would be about 8 cloves of garlic sliced, 1 cup of leek sliced, 1 1/2 cup carrot sliced, a pound of beef chuck roast, 3 cups of water, and salt and pepper to taste. And it even mentions here in this article that the Mesopotamians really did go without a lot of flavor and seasoning, just given the early startup, and they were the pioneers of it all. Here is a traditional dish known as masgouf. It's also known as the nation dish of Iraq. It's a slow-cooked fish, generally a freshwater carp, with minimal seasoning. One of the most popular ways this is prepared is by grilling it on the side. This way it cooks in the flames, but is smoked on the side. After this, Culture Trip notes that I apologize, as Jessica Hard mentions in her article on Culture Trip titled The 10 Traditional Iraqi Dishes You Need to Try. She notes that after you cook it, or it's prepared this way, that you should be generous with the amount of sumac spice, fresh pomegranate seeds, and then the lemon that is poured on top for that final zest. And again, we have the Iraqi dolma. It is a very popular dish, and as you can see on this plate, it has a thin strip of bread placed beneath to soak up all the juices. Something that's important to note for the Iraqi cuisine is that it doesn't have any one specific dish that is just itself, it's specific to Iraq. However, it's a blend of all the different cultures that have been through that area, from the Akkadians to the Assyrians to the Ottoman Empire. There's a lot in between and to present day. That area has, throughout history, always been a battleground, literally and figuratively. And with that, you lose a lot of independence, or the central being of what Iraq is now. But with that, they have a lot of great takes on Persian, Turkish, and a lot of the other Middle Eastern countries that have come through there or have had influence there. That said, it is, popular or famously believed that Iraqi dolma is one of the best takes on dolma throughout that area of the world. It has its roots from the Ottoman Empire, and one of the more popular ways to do this is simmer it within that tomato-based sauce. And it's most commonly, especially when it's stuffed, it's about 50% a meat, or it's a 50% meat blend with maybe lamb, beef, or chicken, and then you have a mix of vegetables that are, generally put in to taste. A traditional Iraqi lunch or dinner will typically have 3 courses: your appetizer, your soup, and your main course. The appetizer could consist of something like a kuba, which is a fried meat patty, or possibly a kebab, as pictured below on the left-hand corner. And one of my personal favorites in the right-hand side is safaya, or pide in Turkish. It's almost like an Arabic pizza. It is absolutely delicious. And following this appetizer, you have a soup, and it's drunk from the bowl as noted by Food by Country. This is not consumed with a spoon, and it's almost like used as a palate cleanser at times. The main course is traditionally very simplistic in nature, with the main course being lamb, chicken, or beef, and is typically accompanied by some sort of salad and possibly some bread with fruit topping or a fruit spread. And of course, the meat of choice is prepared in multiple different ways, which we'll get into later. Now, should you ever find yourself enjoying a nice, delicious, traditional Iraqi lunch or dinner, you're going to want to make sure that you know the customs and courtesies or the overall etiquette that is expected of you at the table. One of the most significant things is the respect that is rooted in their culture. So when a woman or an elder enters a room or comes to the table, you're expected to stand up, greet them, and just be courteous overall. Make sure they're comfortable, make sure they don't need anything. Following this, another very big one is the distinction between the duties of the two hands that's rooted in the Islamic faith. And that's the duties given to the left hand, which are for the more uncleanly acts, versus the right hand. So when you're passing food, make sure to use your right hand. Don't wave with your left. Don't eat with your left. And keep that in mind while you're at the table and in general, should you find yourself, overseas in Iraq while you're enjoying this meal. Now, some customs that are associated leading up to the meal, during the meal, and following the meal are broken down by Culture Atlas as well. They have as standard, wash your hands and the more basic things we know. But some things that might not be as well known is when fruit is offered, you need to slice it and cut it for yourself instead of biting directly into it. And it is polite to accept everything that is offered to you. However, it is customary to slightly refuse and protest, a little bit of acting, and before you accept. Now, if you find yourself in a situation to where you just can't stomach the food, it is customary to place your hand over your heart, give a nod, and if you don't speak the same language, kind of make it known through body language that it's like you're full, they did a great job, and it's no offense to them. Or tell them verbally if you do speak the same language. Then say you are getting towards the end of your meal, it was really good, but you don't want any more. You should leave a little piece of each, as clearing your entire plate signifies that you do want more. So some popular preparation and cooking methods that exist within the Iraqi cuisine consist of stuffing, as you see in the top left picture, with yet again the dolma, and this time with the red and yellow peppers. And then in the bottom part of that top left picture is the kuba I mentioned before. It is a fried beef patty that's stuffed within this dough. And then with the pickling on the top right hand corner, you can see that they have their their pickled vegetables. And then the bottom left hand side, you would see what would be considered a modern day Iraqi meal, really cuisine. And it still holds your traditional roots if it has your main course with the meat entree, accompanied by vegetables, salad, and then I think of hummus on the side. And then finally, you have the cooking methods such as grilling, baking, simmering, and frying. And on the bottom right hand corner, you see a traditional grill that's just being used to kind of cook everything right there on the kebab or the skewer. And you have your tomatoes, your beef, your chicken, your lamb, and it just looks like they're preparing for a really nice big family get together. As we near the end of this presentation for Iraqi cuisine and the history, I want to remember what Amy McDonald said in our readings this week. And I quote, "Food can tell us a lot about a society in the past and the present, including what people lived on and how they managed to create a food supply, often in difficult circumstances. And I don't know if this holds more true for another country or the history of another cuisine. Present day meals and different dishes still have their roots in that initial exploration of the, cultivating and finding out what's going to work for them. You can still see the history in almost every one of these main dishes in Iraq. Whether it be the torshana in the top left, which is a poultry and fruit dish which is inspired from their Persian neighbors, or the kuzi in the very middle, which has your lentils, your rice, your lamb, pretty much all the staples from the origins of the Iraqi cuisine. As we close out this presentation, it is important to note the current conflicts that still persist within Iraq. And with that, they come with a whole host of supply chain issues and different variables that make it hard for the everyday citizen to get the things they need on a consistent basis. And this could inevitably influence future cuisine and future outcomes if you know what they have access to and how that changes over generations should this continue, as it has for the past 2 decades, and even further beyond that before American intervention. And with all that going on, you can still see in the meal below that they are sticking to the roots of, their history of the cuisine. The rice, the chicken, the lamb, and all the soups, and pretty much everything that was a staple from the origins of their cuisine until now still hold a strong, or still have a stronghold within their current modern day cuisine.